The Talos Principle 2 is quite possibly the greatest puzzle game ever made. That's it. That's the intro. I play a lot of puzzle games. So much so that it can be hard for them to feel fresh or unique. I really think it is one of the harder genres to get right, so to speak. Unlike normal games, there's really no difficulty setting for a puzzle. You make a puzzle and then people solve it. But puzzle games are so much more than that. Rarely is it just one mechanic. Usually games will add more as the game progresses, with new layers and complexities being added and interactions to consider across mechanics. As they're introduced, these also have to be taught. And in many cases, this can create an interesting difficulty curve where the game is always resetting, in a way, back to easier puzzles, and then building up in difficulty. And this will continue to happen with each new mechanic. On top of all this, the mechanics themselves actually have to be fun. And fun, of course, is subjective. For me personally, I'm not really big into the Sokoban type puzzles, so Steven's Sausage Roll, Baba Is You, or Patrick's Parabox, those just aren't really the games for me. I don't find them as engaging as other types of puzzlers. I can still admit that there's some cool mechanics and really mind-bending puzzles in those games, but for me at least, it's not really energizing to solve them, it's actually just exhausting. And with this video, I'm not really trying to make any statement on specific types of puzzle games. I don't necessarily think that one type of puzzle game is better than another. I'm more just trying to express the nuances that I think come into play a lot more with this genre of game than others. But it's also why I'm so blown away by the Talos Principle 2, because it somehow manages to one-up itself at every turn. Every perceived peak is really a plateau, hiding another climb to even greater heights. Yes, each mechanic has one or two easy introductory puzzles, but their floor really does feel near, or at least close to, the peak of the last area's difficulty. And so it always feels like a smooth climb up, rather than a jerky up and down. The game's greatest strength is arguably how it manipulates your perspective, presenting puzzles in such a way that even obvious solutions are somehow hidden from you. But at the same time, the game never feels unfair or forced. I never finished a puzzle and thought, that was stupid. I was always thinking, I am stupid. And I mean that in the most positive way possible. Not once in my almost 25-hour playthrough did I feel like a puzzle was impossible. Yes, there were many occasions where I was absolutely stumped with little to no idea on how to solve a puzzle, and yet I knew that I had been equipped by the game to solve it. Instead of growing discouraged, I grew in my resolve. The puzzles are so well designed, there's really no other word for them but elegant. Much like its predecessor, the story of this game leans heavily into philosophy, focusing mostly on Pandora and Prometheus, this idea that man will destroy themselves with knowledge and power that they've been given, and whether or not it's worth even having those powers because of that. You play as 1K, the 1000th humanoid robot made by a post-human group of sentient robot people. It's kind of hard to explain, but essentially humans all died, but they made robots. And the first game was all about how those robots actually gained sentience through solving puzzles. And now we kind of get to see their society that has blossomed and grown since the end of the first game. Most of the characters in the game are archetypal, essentially blindly and strongly believing in their ideals, their subset of philosophy. And at times, especially in the beginning, it really can feel like an intro to ethics and philosophy class for a lot of the game, and I really felt that way with the first game too. But in the later parts of the game, the theory is actually put into application as some truths are revealed about what is really going on in the narrative. And this actually makes you recontextualize a lot of the previous narrative and the written and audio logs that you've been finding throughout the various puzzle areas. And thanks to this application, the story ends up having a lot of weight and doesn't feel like empty pontificating, which is a big problem I had with the first game. Both the story and the puzzles evolve over time, introducing new elements that build upon those that came before to add up to an even greater high. The puzzles especially Every new mechanic they'd introduce, I'd think, well, okay, what could they possibly do after this? What else is there? Where could they be going? What could be next? What could be better than this? And yet somehow I was never disappointed. The game isn't even all puzzles. Each area that you find yourself in is huge, and it's designed to be explored. Yes, you can just run through and do the 8 required puzzles and move on to the next area, but you'd be missing out on a lot. Every area has 2 additional optional puzzles that you can solve, as well as 2 of 3 possible statues. These can themselves be puzzles, or simpler, like find an item somewhere in the area and return it. There's also terminals with text and audio logs that you can find that help flesh out the story, not just the robot characters, but also the story of the humans that came before. My favorite part, though, was each area had a lab, which would usually provide a sneak peek into the next area's mechanics. It was kind of cool to go and see those and think about, oh, this is what's coming next. That was a really nice touch, I thought. Exploring these areas can be a puzzle in itself. Nothing as grand as the meta puzzles in a game like The Witness, but I still looked forward to exploring new areas almost as much as for the puzzles I'd be solving in those new areas. You're given a radar at the top of your screen that can help you navigate, but honestly, I wish I hadn't noticed it. I didn't for the first area or 2, and it was so much better to just naturally explore and navigate the areas. They give you enough contextual clues in the area itself that the radar really felt like overkill. I never had the confidence to turn it off. I'm honestly not even sure if you could turn it off, but having it also wasn't that much of a detraction. The Talos Principle 2 is an absolute masterpiece. Its elegant puzzles, gorgeous world, and thought-provoking narrative are so finely crafted, curated, and presented. It was an absolute joy from start to finish and stood out so strongly and in such stark contrast to so many of the other puzzle games I've played. And I would include the first Talos Principle in that. I really was not that impressed with the first game. I almost didn't buy this sequel because of that, but I'm so glad I did. It is so much better. So if you liked the first game and you haven't played this one yet for some reason, you need to go buy it right now. And now there's DLC 2, which again has managed to one-up the base game. I've played through the first 2 of the 3 little DLC modules that they've released, and they're great. The first one presents an entire new perspective to the standard laser puzzles that absolutely wrinkled my brain, while the second one feels like a fitting epilogue to the main game, taking pieces from the entire catalog of mechanics of the base game and presenting them in new and unique ways, though not really adding any new mechanics. The final one is absolutely impossible. It's described as extremely challenging by the devs, and they mean it. Even the first puzzle is absolutely stumping me. I'm very excited to work through it. I just haven't had the time to yet, as I'm recording this video. Honestly, if you even think you like puzzle games, you have to check this game out. It is that good. For a final rating, I would give the presentation a 4 out of 5, the gameplay a 5 out of 5, and the story a 4 out of 5, for an overall of 5 out of 5. For value, absolutely worth it. If I haven't made that clear yet, I don't know how else I can. I don't know how this game could be any better. It's so good. It's such an amazing experience. One of the most finely crafted puzzle games that you can play. But what do you think? Did you not like the Talos Principle 2? Am I crazy? Let me know in the comments down below. What's your favorite kind of puzzle game? Don't forget to like the video if you liked the video. Maybe subscribe to the channel. And I will see you all with the next video.